My colleagues thought I was the quiet IT girl who fixed their printers. They laughed when I brought my own keyboard to work, but what they didn't know was that every keystroke I typed was ending lives halfway across the world. My cubicle wasn't an office, it was a war room. My name is Sarah Chen, and 6 months ago I was the most forgettable person you'd ever meet. I'm talking truly invisible. The kind of person who walks into a meeting and people forget I'm there until they need the Wi-Fi password or their laptop won't connect to the printer. I worked at DataCore Solutions, which sounds impressive until you realize it's just another gray building filled with gray cubicles where dreams go to die slowly, one spreadsheet at a time. Every morning started the same way. I'd walk through those glass doors at exactly 8:45, clutch my coffee like it was the only thing keeping me tethered to sanity, and disappear into my corner cubicle. Corner sounds nice, right? Like I had a view or something special. No. I was tucked away where they put people they don't want to see. Out of sight, out of mind, the marketing team would breeze past my desk talking about their weekend brunches and dating app disasters, never once acknowledging I existed. The tech bros in their hoodies would mansplain basic coding concepts to each other 10 feet from my desk, completely unaware that I had a master's degree in computer science and could code circles around them in my sleep. But the worst part wasn't being ignored, it was being useful only when convenient. My manager, Derek, this middle-aged guy who wore the same 3 ties on rotation and smelled like stale coffee and desperation, he only remembered my name when something broke. Sarah, the client database is down. Sarah, why is the server running slow? Sarah, can you stay late and fix this mess that definitely wasn't my fault even though I clicked on an obvious phishing email? And I'd fix it every single time. I'd stay until 9 at night, miss dinner, solve problems that would have taken the actual IT department days to figure out. And the next morning, Derek would present my solutions in a meeting like they were his ideas. I'd hear him through the thin walls taking all the credit, and nobody ever questioned it because, well, what could Sarah possibly contribute? The loneliness was suffocating. I'd eat lunch alone at my desk, scrolling through social media, watching other people live lives that seemed so full, so vibrant, so seen. My college friends had moved on to exciting careers, relationships, adventures in different cities, and there I was, 28 years old, slowly dissolving into office furniture. Sometimes I'd go entire days where the only words I spoke out loud were, "Yes, I can fix that," and "No problem." I started bringing my own keyboard to work, this beautiful mechanical one with custom keys, because at least I could control one small thing in my environment. The clicking sound made me feel real, like I was actually doing something, making an impact, even if that impact was just another quarterly report nobody would read. My coworkers thought it was weird, of course. Jennifer from accounting made some snide comment about how I was so extra for bringing my own equipment. Brad from sales literally laughed and said, "What? The company keyboards aren't good enough for you, princess?" I didn't have the energy to explain that when you spend 10 hours a day typing, you want something that doesn't make your wrists scream. But that's the thing about being invisible. Even your small acts of self-care become jokes for other people's entertainment. I started fantasizing about being important. Not famous, just important. I wanted to matter to someone somewhere. I wanted to walk into a room and have people pay attention, not because something was broken, but because I had value. I wanted my skills to mean something beyond fixing Derek's email password for the 100th time. Every night I'd go home to my tiny apartment, heat up some sad microwave dinner, and wonder if this was all life had to offer, this crushing, soul-destroying mediocrity where your biggest accomplishment of the day was successfully merging 2 Excel files without crashing the system. I had no idea that within 72 hours, everything would change. I had no idea that my wish to matter, to be seen, to be indispensable, was about to be granted in the most twisted way imaginable. It happened on a Thursday night. I was working late again, alone in the office because Derek had somehow corrupted an entire client database and blamed it on a system glitch. The building was silent except for the hum of servers and my keyboard clicks, echoing through empty cubicles. I was deep in the recovery process when I noticed something strange. A hidden partition on the company server that shouldn't exist. My curiosity got the better of me, I know, classic mistake. But after years of fixing everyone else's problems, I wanted to know what DataCore was actually doing with all this data we supposedly analyzed. What I found made my blood run cold. Encrypted files, military-grade security protocols, names, locations, photographs of people I'd never heard of, and terminology that made my stomach turn. High-value targets, elimination confirmed, asset neutralized. This wasn't consumer data analysis. DataCore was routing something much darker, something that smelled like intelligence operations and government contracts that officially didn't exist. The email arrived in my spam folder 3 hours later, at 2 in the morning while I sat frozen at my desk. The subject line was just my employee ID number inside. One sentence. "Curiosity is dangerous, Sarah, but so is talent going to waste." It was signed, Bishop. I should have been terrified. I should have deleted everything and pretended I'd never seen it. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. I felt seen. Someone was paying attention. Someone knew what I was capable of. The recruitment was subtle, elegant even. Bishop never threatened me. Instead, they offered me a choice through a series of encrypted messages. I could go back to my invisible existence, fixing printers and watching Derek steal credit for my work, or I could use my skills for something that actually mattered. They said I'd be protecting people, stopping threats before they materialized, being part of something bigger than quarterly reports and office politics. They made it sound noble, heroic even, and God help me, I wanted to believe it. The training started immediately. Instructions arrived in corrupted image files, hidden in spam emails, buried in code that only someone with my skills could extract. I learned advanced infiltration techniques, how to trace digital footprints across the dark web, how to identify targets through their online behavior patterns. And then came the keyboard. My keyboard, the one I'd been using all along, except now it arrived back to me modified. Custom-built with encrypted channels built into every key, each keystroke could route through secure networks that didn't officially exist. It was beautiful and terrifying all at once. My first mission came 3 weeks later, a terrorist cell coordinating attacks through encrypted forums, planning to bomb a school in Munich. My job was simple: infiltrate their communications, locate their physical positions, mark their digital signatures for extraction. I worked through the night in my apartment, my fingers flying across those keys, and by dawn, I'd mapped all 3 members. 24 hours later, Bishop confirmed the results. 3 drone strikes, 3 targets eliminated, and according to intelligence, 473 children who would never know how close they came to dying. I threw up in my bathroom for 20 minutes. But then I looked at myself in the mirror and whispered the magic words that would damn me. I saved them. I actually saved people. For the first time in my pathetic, invisible life, I mattered. I had power. I was indispensable. The missions came faster after that. 5 targets, 12, 23, 47. Each one was justified with intelligence reports and threat assessments, arms dealers, bomb makers, recruiters for extremist organizations. I'd complete my operations at night, then show up to DataCore the next morning and suffer through the same humiliating routine. Derek would criticize my slow report writing, completely unaware I'd spent the previous night dismantling a weapons trafficking network. Jennifer would mock my exhaustion, not knowing I'd been awake for 36 hours tracking a hacker selling classified information. Brad made jokes about my fancy keyboard, never suspecting it was the instrument I used to end human lives. The irony was delicious and poisonous. They treated me like I was nobody while I held the power of life and death in my fingertips. I was living 2 lives, and the distance between them was getting harder to navigate. Mission 73 changed everything. The target was a 19-year-old kid named Dmitry Volkov, supposedly a hacker selling government secrets to hostile nations. The intelligence file Bishop sent was thick with evidence: screenshots of dark web transactions, encrypted communications with known foreign agents, bank transfers that traced back to enemy states. It looked airtight. It looked justified. I spent 3 days tracking his digital footprint, mapping his location to a small apartment in Prague, and marking him for extraction. When I hit that final keystroke, the one that sealed his fate, I felt nothing. I'd become numb to it by then. 89 confirmed kills, and I'd learned to shut off the part of me that questioned, that felt, that remembered these were human beings. The drone strike happened at 4:37 in the morning, Prague time. 1 missile, clean elimination, target neutralized. I filed my report, closed my laptop, and tried to sleep. Just another mission, just another problem solved. Then, 6 days later, I saw his face on the news, not as a terrorist or a traitor, as a victim, a whistleblower who'd discovered evidence of corruption in his country's defense ministry. Leaked documents proved he wasn't selling secrets, he was trying to expose them. The foreign agents he'd been communicating with were investigative journalists. The bank transfers were payments for his protection, for safe houses, for a chance to testify. And I'd killed him. I'd murdered a kid who was trying to do the right thing. Because someone found him inconvenient, I couldn't breathe. I sat on my bathroom floor for hours, shaking, replaying every mission in my head. How many others? How many of my 89 kills were actually innocent people who'd become problems for someone powerful? I'd been so desperate to matter, so hungry to be important, that I'd never questioned the narrative they fed me. I was never a soldier. I was never a protector. I was an assassin for hire, and I'd been too blind and desperate to see it. I confronted Bishop through our encrypted channels, and for the first time, they dropped the patriotic facade. The truth came out in cold, clinical sentences. The program wasn't about stopping terrorists. It was about eliminating problems. Whistleblowers who knew too much, activists who disrupted the wrong industries, journalists investigating classified operations, hackers who stumbled onto inconvenient truths. I was a cleaner, a digital executioner for people who needed their enemies to disappear without the mess of legal systems or public accountability. And data core? My boring, soul-crushing day job? It was the perfect front, the perfect cover for routing extrajudicial killings through corporate servers that nobody would ever suspect. Bishop's final message still burns in my memory. You wanted to matter, Sarah. Congratulations. You're the most effective asset we've ever recruited. 89 problems solved. You should be proud. But the nightmare wasn't over. Marcus Chen, a new analyst who'd started 2 months earlier, had been watching me. He'd noticed things. My exhaustion, the military-grade encryption on my laptop, the way I'd flinch when news reports mentioned drone strikes in locations I recognized. He'd been digging, asking questions, and he'd found something. I don't know what exactly, but it was enough. He confronted me in the office on a Wednesday afternoon, right in the middle of the bullpen where everyone could hear, "You're not who you pretend to be," he said, his voice shaking but determined. "I know what you're doing. I know what this company really is." The office went silent. Then Brad started laughing. Jennifer rolled her eyes. Derek told Marcus to stop harassing employees and get back to work. The same invisibility that had tortured me for years now became my shield. Nobody could believe that boring, forgettable Sarah Chen could be anything more than a printer-fixing, report-writing nobody. But Marcus knew. And that night, Bishop sent me Mission 90. The target file opened on my screen, and there was Marcus's face staring back at me. Address daily routine, threat assessment, elimination approval granted. My keyboard sat in front of me, cursor blinking, waiting for my command. I'd killed 89 people. They wanted me to make it 90. They wanted me to murder the only person who'd actually seen me for what I'd become. I stared at Marcus's file for 3 hours straight, my fingers hovering over the keys but refusing to move. 89 people. 89 lives ended because I was so desperate to feel important that I'd sold my soul without even negotiating the price. But this was different. This wasn't some face on a screen halfway across the world. This was someone I saw every day, someone who'd tried to warn me, to save me, even when I was too far gone to save myself. If I killed Marcus, there would be no coming back. I'd be exactly what Bishop wanted, a perfectly obedient weapon with no conscience left to betray, so I made a different choice. I turned my skills against the people who'd created me. For 3 days and nights, I barely slept. I used every technique they'd taught me, every backdoor I'd discovered, every exploit I'd mastered. But this time I wasn't hunting targets. I was hunting the truth. I traced Bishop's communications through 7 proxy servers and 16 encrypted channels. I followed the money through shell corporations and offshore accounts. And slowly, piece by piece, the picture came together. Bishop wasn't some mysterious intelligence handler. Bishop was Richard Halverson, my CEO, the man who walked past my cubicle every day without seeing me. DataCore Solutions had never been a data company. It was designed from the ground up as a front for extrajudicial killings, a way to eliminate problems without congressional oversight or legal accountability. Every mission file I'd ever received was still cached in my encrypted drives, every target, every fake intelligence report, every fabricated threat assessment. I compiled it all. 89 murders, complete with the real stories behind each victim, the journalist investigating military contractors, the accountant who discovered illegal arms sales, the programmer who found evidence of election interference, the activist organizing against corporate pollution. Dmitry Volkov wasn't an anomaly. He was the pattern. I'd been killing inconvenient people for corporations and politicians who wanted them silenced. I included everything. Mission logs, communication records, financial transactions, and my own full confession, because I wasn't going to hide behind my keyboard anymore. If I was going down, I was taking everyone with me. I uploaded the entire archive to WikiLeaks, sent copies to the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, and filed a formal report with the FBI. 63 gigabytes of evidence that couldn't be deleted, couldn't be covered up, couldn't be explained away. Then I used my keyboard. One last time I sent Marcus an encrypted message with copies of everything, told him to go to the FBI immediately, and waited for the world to burn. The raids came within 18 hours. Federal agents swarmed DataCore while I was sitting at my desk pretending to work on a quarterly report. Derek was arrested in his office, still holding his coffee. Jennifer and Brad were led out in handcuffs, their faces pale with shock. Richard Halverson, the man who'd called himself Bishop, tried to run and was tackled in the parking garage by 6 agents. I watched through my cubicle window, my hands perfectly steady for the first time in months. When they came for me, I didn't resist. I'd known this was how it would end. Marcus was vindicated but traumatized. He'd never look at me the same way again, and I didn't blame him. My former colleagues finally saw me, really saw me, but as both a monster and the whistleblower who'd exposed the conspiracy that employed them. The news called me an assassin, a hero, a traitor, a patriot. Nobody could agree on what I was, which felt appropriate because I didn't know either. I'm sitting in FBI custody now, waiting for a trial that'll probably end with me in prison for the rest of my life. My keyboard is in an evidence locker somewhere, tagged and cataloged with 89 kills logged in its memory. The program I exposed would have killed thousands more. That's what the prosecutors tell me, like it's supposed to make me feel better. Bishop and 47 co-conspirators are facing federal charges. DataCore is being dismantled piece by piece. But here's the thing about karma that nobody tells you. It doesn't care about your intentions. I wanted to matter so badly that I became something that can only exist in darkness. The invisibility I hated saved me from being caught for months. The visibility I craved destroyed everything I was. My keyboard sits in an evidence locker now, 89 kills logged, dozens of conspirators behind bars, and me, waiting for a trial that could mean life in prison. Was it worth it? Ask the people I saved by exposing the program. Then ask the 89 I didn't save. Ask Dmitry Volkov, the 19-year-old whistleblower whose last thoughts I'll never know. Ask Marcus, who saw me when no one else did and almost died for it. Invisibility isn't weakness. Sometimes it's a weapon, sometimes it's a shield, and sometimes when you finally step into the light, you discover you've become something that can only survive in shadows. If this story kept you on edge, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that reveal what's hidden in plain sight, and comment below. Would you have made the same choice I did? Would you have stopped at mission 1, or would you have let the hunger to matter consume you too? Remember, the quietest person in the room might be the most dangerous, Or they might be the only one brave enough to burn it all down when they finally understand what they've become. My name is Sarah Chen. I was invisible until I wasn't. And that's a curse I'll carry for the rest of my life.